see the increase there is $252,000, which is primarily the contribution. It's the increase in real estate tax flowing into this area as a contribution to the funding plan for the high school project. And I'll try to demonstrate that a little more here in the upcoming slide. That is mostly what I talked about. There you can see the breakdowns, the debt transfer, the debt service fund transfer, $3.1 million. That's our payment on debt service for 16-17. Capital reserve fund transfer $209, and a transfer to student activities for $5,000. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this capital reserve fund and the funding plan, if you will, for the high school project. So we started this funding plan in 2013-14, and you can see $150,000 was set aside to build capacity in the budget to pay the debt service. Okay, 13-14, $150,000 transferred to capital reserve. 14-15, another tax increase, additional capacity. You plug it in, here's the capital reserve fund transfer. Now your net total is $422,000. Okay, that's in the right column. 15-16, another $266. You're building capacity. 16-17, that's the year that we're looking forward to. Another $247,000. If you go all the way back to where we started, the tax increase drives $247,000. So your net total at this point is you have capacity in your budget to pay additional debt of $935,000. Now, for the 16-17 school year, you have additional debt coming online. So we have the related to the high school project, you have the 2015 series bonds, and then we have the 2016 series bonds, which will be coming on here next week in terms of getting the money, and then will be payable in 16-17. So we've built the capacity, but now we need to use that capacity to pay debt service. So now we're going to take we have an additional $726,000 of payments in 16-17. So that amount will be shifted to debt service payment, and you reduce the capital reserve fund contribution. So you've now used some of your capacity. So the contribution to the capital reserve fund will be $209. In 17-18, you'll have another increase. You'll probably have more debt service come online. That should be, according to the plan, the last year of borrowing and coming online. And so you'll have another increase and another decrease. So this is the plan for building capacity and then using that capacity to shift to cover debt service. You can see it actually in action, real dollars, a real budget happening right there. The final area, this is considered other expenditures, is budgetary reserve. As I mentioned way back in the beginning, there is a policy in place that indicates there should be a minimum of 2%, maximum of 10% budgetary reserve for unforeseen things, unpredictable changes in the cost of goods and services, as well as the occurrence of events that are vaguely predictable during budget preparations. And I can give you a fantastic example of this. 2011, right. 2011, all of a sudden in October, right? September. All of a sudden in September, we have Tropical Storm Lee come up, and we have flooding and wipes out the Slabtown Bridge. We had to reroute our buses all the way down through town, up the Lowestoft Valley back. We almost doubled, not quite doubled our miles of transportation that year. Created a significant, nearly $500,000 increase in the budget for that year. Fortunately, we had budgetary reserve to absorb those costs for that year. So it's very important to have a budgetary reserve line item for those things that you just can't predict. You never know what's going to come.
In relation to this budgetary reserve, there's a conversation I had with Dr. Bob a while back about what happens if a family moves in easily run $500,000 a year. So, again, that's unexpected that a family would just move in. But in that scenario, where does that money come from?
That would come from the budgetary reserve. I think, so the question was, I just want to be sure everybody heard that. So the question was, if you have a high-needs student or a family with a couple of high-needs students or something move into the district, depending on the need of the student, I mean, you at times can be upwards, depending on transportation and specific care and services. It could be $250,000 to $500,000 for an individual student. It's not unheard of. And so the question is, if you're halfway through the fiscal year and someone moves in and you have that scenario, is this where the funding would come from for that type of situation? The answer is yes. That's why I strongly advocate for having your reserve for scenarios like that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So right now we have 2%.
Correct, 2%. Yeah. Again, so the level of that is $600,000, which is 2% of the budgeted expenditures. So in terms of the budget, there are overall three components. We talked about the revenues, we talked about the expenditures, and the final piece is fund balance. That's the money that you use and sort of the money that rolls over at the beginning of the year. You have to start the year off, the money that's there at the end of the year. Fund balance is broken into various components. Again, this is driven by accounting rules, but you have fund balance, but you can say some of that is designated for a very specific purpose, which we've done. We're using some of that for pension obligation increase. You can have others that at the end of the year is just for general purposes. It's just available. Okay, so the general purpose is what they call unassigned fund balance. It hasn't been assigned. It doesn't have a specific purpose. You then have an assigned fund balance, which it has a purpose, but that purpose is designated by an administrator in the district saying, okay, we set this money aside this year, we're going to use that for X item next year. And it's just sort of, it's a designation by the administrator. Committed is where the board takes action and really puts some teeth in it and says, this has a very specific purpose, and that can only change or only can be used, or you need board action to sort of change that plan. So, so you have this unassigned, assigned, and committed. So we have, again, some assigned and committed. So here you have, I'll try to go through this quick and not confuse it. Here you have 2015-16, the original budget. Revenue, expenditures, the difference, okay, fund balance, beginning of the year, fund balance at the end of the year. Okay? Then you had that fund balance broken down at the end of the year, broken down into two categories. We had unassigned, which had really no general purpose, other than it was left over, if you will. There was nothing with that. And then you had this 1.1 million, which had a specific purpose, funding the retirement obligation. Here we are mid-year. We do some projections based on where based on activity throughout the year. So here we are. This is the revised budget mid-year. Here's our revised revenue figure based on what we know today. Here's our revised expenditures, again, based on what we know today. So we have a revised difference. And then this is the actual ending fund balance from the previous year. So once we have our finances audited, we know, okay, at the end of June 30th, we had an actual amount of this. So we have a fund balance now of 2.7 million. So now you can see we still have our committed amount, but you have 1.6 million available to move into the next year, if you will. Now, we'll see the whole amount moving in, but what you really have available for general purposes is the 1.6. million. Okay, so for 16-17, you see our revenues, our expenditures, the difference, the fund balance, and we're using some of that fund balance, the 1.16, we're using some of that to help mitigate the cost of the pension obligation. And so we're going to lower our assigned or committed to 754. I think, yeah, so on the next slide, you can actually see this. So we had 1.16 at the beginning of the year. We're going to use 405,000 to help mitigate those costs of retirement. And then at the end of the year, you have 754,000 to use in the coming years to help. I said I would give you a visual on this whole concept of the retirement system. So the blue line is the retirement contribution rate in percentage. Okay, so you can see that in 2010-11 it was 5.64%. It went up each year. Here you can see approximately 3%, 4%-ish, 4. So you can see the blue line is the actual percentage. The red line is what we have set aside or used. So in this year, 10-11, we actually budgeted for what would be the equivalent of 12.41%. We put this extra money, the difference here, into a savings account. The next year, they were equal. Now, as this line has been going up for the pension obligation, we have been budgeting at this level, the red level, and filling the difference with that extra money, with that fund, the money we set aside. So what happens is, here we are in 16-17, you can sort of see that that's probably has the most distance, that's sort of the peak in terms of, additional dollars we're going to need to fund this. But in 1, 2, 3 more years, we're going to be very close. And in 4 more years, we should have spent all the dollars that we set aside, and we should be contributing at the same percentage that the system is demanding. Sometimes that's difficult to understand in terms of percentage, so I put it together for you in terms of dollars. Okay, so here this is the same concept, but it shows it to you in terms of dollars. So in this first year, we needed to pay $342,000 in pension costs, but we set aside, if you will, 1.1 million. You go out here to 16-17, the year we're talking about, we're spending as budgeted dollars 1.4, but we're using that reserve money to fill up to the required 1.8. Okay? Does anybody have questions on that? So again, so then next year we'll fill this, we'll fill the difference, and again, by the time we get up here, we will have spent, if you took the difference between each one of these data points here and added that all up, that would be the amount of money that we had set aside in the beginning to fund this. And this was, those collars made this look a little different. Originally, there was to be like a 10 or 15% jump, which would have made this a little more dramatic, the blue line. But it still has helped. It has really leveled the amount that you're trying to increase your budget each year for pension obligations. You can see it's flat and level. And because I was asked the question at one point in the past, I also put it in there in terms of mills of real estate. Okay? Same concept, same lines. It's just, here this requires, where are we, 16, 17? Our budget is required to fund 1.9 mills of real estate, but the pension system is going to take from us 2.54 mills of real estate tax, and so we're taking out of the fund the difference, which would be 0.55 mills of real estate tax. So whether you want to look at it in the first slide in terms of percentage of payroll, if you want to look at it this second slide, which is actual dollars, or you want to look at the third slide, which is relates it to mills or real estate tax. It's all the same concept. You can see the lines are similar.
So 16, 17 is actually the biggest jump.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we're at that point where the lines are going to start turning and coming back together after the budget that we're talking about, the budget year we're talking about next fiscal year. And then the idea is once you get out here, it really levels off moving out into the future. And once you have built a cost into your budget, it's there, but it's not a nuisance. What's a nuisance is when it's increasing each year, you have to find the additional dollars. And again, I'm talking in terms of being a person who builds a budget, not being a taxpayer funding this. I'm not saying that level isn't a nuisance, to the taxpayer ongoing. What I'm saying is building a budget, the nuisance is having that increase each year. And so we need to continue to fund the pension obligation, but we're also trying to do programmatic things over here, and you have competing interests in terms of costs.
Robert, what determines the district's pension obligation, the amount? What determines that amount?
So the question is, what determines the pension obligation amount? I think, correct me if I don't answer your question correctly. It is your total wages times the rate that they set in December. Remember back on an earlier slide, it showed the rate. So it's in this year, we go back 2 slides, because there we see the rate. So in 16, 17, it will be wages times 30.3%. And then in 17, 18, it will be wages times, sorry, I can't see it, it's in the rate there. So it's these rates, and we know these from here back, from 16, 17 back are actual. These are projected based on actuarial calculations. So those can change somewhat. Okay, so that gets us through the revenues, the expenditures, and the fund balance. The funding concepts that we've put together over the years, like the building project, the pension obligation, and really brings us back now to timeline moving forward. And what these are is these are the deadlines. This isn't, we're not going to wait until May 10th to talk about this again. But these are the deadlines that we want to be mindful of. May 10th, we should adopt a proposed final budget. And yes, while I'm here, a proposed final budget is just that. It's proposed final. When you get to May 10th, you shouldn't feel that you need to have this thing hammered out to the Senate. You should have it to a point where you're making small adjustments, maybe between then and the final budget. I mean, what you don't want to do is say, okay, on May 10th, we're going to adopt a proposed final budget. It's got a 0.32 mil tax increase in it, and then come back at the final adoption on June 14th and say, oh, hey, by the way, public, we're going to go up to 0.44 mils. That's not good. That's not good public policy. But you can still change it. What this is it requires the board to put a document out there showing that there's work on a budget. The public can see that there's something's been put together. I'm sure at some point in the olden days, whenever that may have been, on June 14th, all of a sudden we walk out, put a budget on the table, here we go, approved, and the public didn't have an opportunity to understand what was going on. So this process really is for transparency. So on May 10th, it is a proposed final budget. It still can change. On the 25th, you need to make that budget available for public inspection. So we'll put a copy in the office. People can come in and look at it, evaluate it. On June 4th, you would make a public notice in the newspaper that the board is going to adopt the final budget. And there's a board meeting on June 14th. At that point, we would hope that the board would adopt the final budget at that time. Legally, you have until June 30th to adopt the budget. What I can tell you is that creates significant challenges from the operational side because you're required to have tax notices in the taxpayers' hands by July 1st, and it is pretty much impossible to adopt the budget on June 30th and have a tax notice in the taxpayers' hands on July 1st. So, but June 14th is a really good target, so I would encourage the board to try to maintain at a minimum this timeline that's outlined here.
Robert, have you ever had public actually come in and looked at the budget?
I believe once or twice in my 14 years, somebody's had it, but it's there, and they're certainly welcome to. I've always been open to discussing it with them and explaining, because I live with a board member. I think it's good to educate anybody who's interested. And again, this is a recap. This is basically the second slide all over again, but just a reminder, this budget did propose, or the draft proposes a 0.32 mil real estate tax increase, has that $209,000 transfer to capital reserve fund, contains a $600,000 budgetary reserve, and uses $405,600 in fund balance. I'm sure when we went over the second slide, we thought, I have no idea what he's talking about, but after that presentation, you're like, I don't even have to reread this thing tonight because it is stuck in there and we've got it. And we're at the point for any questions. So the question is, will I still be here when we adopt the final budget? My intention is to help see the district through this process. I will be here on Fridays through June 3rd. The budget will be adopted shortly after that. If everybody's nice to me, I may even make the trip back to the June board meeting too. But yeah, it's very hard to work through the budget and then have somebody just take it. Now, what I can say is, I've been working with other people to make sure there's some continuity there. But I want to see what the district get through this process. So don't hold me to that. Oh no, it's not important.
Very generic question, if you would. I now understand that money's coming from everywhere, local, state, federal, this and that.
Right.
Some of the things are probably on schedule most of the time, like real estate taxes and so forth.
Sure.
But there's certainly, in your 14 years, have you ever run into a situation where you just run out of money because the state's messing with, and is that what allows you to transfer, according to county principles, from one to the other to get you through that hump until that money comes in? Because they promise you and it's a month late, and here you are writing checks.
So the question is, in this year, the Commonwealth budget has not come through yet. And does that ever create challenges in your day-to-day operations, funding operations? I can say that I've never experienced a year like this where it's 9 months going on 10 months late. But they did get money to us mid-year, which helped. Another thing that helps a school district is that your real estate tax is levied up front. So in your first, the end of your discount period is the end of August. A lot of people like to pay at the end of the discount period. Your big corporations definitely pay at the end of the discount period. So you see a lot of your revenue come in July and August related to real estate. So that's helpful. Then you have reserves and sort of the fallback, and many of my colleagues have said the same thing. We have capital reserve funds which can only be used for capital type expenditures. But you can bet that if we needed the money, we would pull it out of there and use it. And if some state auditor felt like writing us up, we would restore that. If they felt like writing us up, our response would be simply, if Harrisburg could have gotten us the money, we would have done that.
Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. If you have any questions,
Thank you, Robert.
sure. If you have any questions, please let me know. Hopefully this document is comprehensive and everything I've said is in there so you can refer back.
Thank you.
Piece of cake, right?
No, I was doing that.
Just to see me get simple. Did you get simple?
time, take public comment on agenda items for a period of half an hour if needed, 3 minutes per person. Since there's no public comment on agenda items, I'm sorry.
My name is Amy Lode McNamara, Thanksgiving Lane. My Monday morning rant. I'm fed up with the rainbows and flags and I'm offended crap. Suck it up, Buttercup. This is still America. We will tolerate you for now. You don't like my flag? I don't like yours. Don't put your flag on my pole and leave my flag alone. And we will be fine.
Excuse me, is this an agenda item?
Did you discuss a board member?
Is this an agenda item?
Yes.
After agenda items are done, we'll have public comment and we can come up and do public comments and stuff that isn't on the agenda.
So this isn't an agenda item, even
No,
though
we-
it was discussed?
We did not put it on the agenda.
I wonder if that's on purpose.
No, you can come up
Okay.
after
All right,
agenda items.
I'll be
are
back.
done. This time I'd like to make a motion to approve a 4-year employment agreement with Brandy N. Smith to serve as business manager of the Toursville Area School District beginning May 2nd, 2016.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I have a comment. There was a meeting that you had that I was invited to. Unfortunately, my schedule did not permit that. I would like it stated for the record, Mr. Saul, that I did meet with Brandy individually, and I was concerned about 2 issues. One is the complexity of the job, and after having met with her, I came away not 99.9%, but 100% sure that she's the right candidate for the position. The second thing I talked to her about was the steep learning curve. Now, Mr. Saul's been doing this for 14 years, and he makes it look easy, but it's not. And the presentation he just gave, I think, proves that out. Again, we talked about it in detail, and again, I'm proud to come away with 100% assurance that she's fully capable of the learning curve. And not only do I feel that she's going to meet our expectations, I think she will do so in record time. Thank you.
All those in favor of approving Brandy N. Smith to serve as business manager of the Toursville Area High School for a 4-year employment agreement beginning May 2nd? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This time I'd like to make a motion to consider the nomination and election of Brandy N. Smith as School Board Secretary effective May 2nd, 2016 to fulfill the 4-year term ending on June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I will accept public comments for 3 minutes per person for a total of half an hour.
Amy Love McNamara, Thanksgiving Lane. My Monday morning rant, I'm fed up with the rainbows and flags and I'm offended crap. Suck it up, Buttercup. This is still America. We will tolerate you for now. You don't like my flag? I don't like yours. Don't put your flag on my pole. Leave my flag alone and we will be fine. You like rainbows? So do I. It was God's promise to Noah to restore life. It is God's symbol of hope. If it means something else to you, fine, but don't shove it down my throat. I will fight back. You want to marry the same sex? Fine, marry a goat. I really don't care. But when you start demanding we like what you do and have to cater to you, we are done with you. You don't want me to have a gun? Too bad. I might be protecting your sorry blank with that gun someday. Suck it up. This is still America. We will tolerate your beliefs, but we will not be overcome by them. If you don't like it, I'm sure we can arrange passage to another country. And when you start dividing us and turning our children into zombie fairies, then we will not tolerate you anymore. We will fight you. What I just read is one of the many posts with similar content from Karen Ditcher-Wright, who is asking to be appointed to our school board. I am horrified by her comments and what she has allowed on her Facebook group that she is the administrator of. If you appoint this woman, I hope that the headlines of the Williamsport Sun-Gazette reads, "Board appoints racist, homophobic bigot to its board," and they list every single one of the board members that voted for her. Let me share one more thing. School board policy 218.3, bullying, cyberbullying. The Montoursville Area School District is committed to providing a safe, positive learning environment for district students. The board recognizes that bullying creates an atmosphere of intimidation, distracts from the safe environment necessary for student learning, and may lead to more serious violence. Therefore, the board prohibits bullying by district students. What is Karen's opinion on this? What is it? According to her post, she reposted on Facebook, "Want to stop a bully? Punch the effer in the face. We will never get rid of bullying. We should teach kids how to stand up for themselves instead of wearing pink ribbons and passing anti-bullying laws to create a society of victims." I'm a mother of 3 children and a taxpayer, and we don't need this type of hate and anger on this board. Here's her post, and I also have a copy of it here.
Snyder, 243 Merriman Drive. I helped run a campaign to get certain members elected to the school board. Unfortunately, I lost that campaign. One of the people running for board was Dottie Mathers. I did not know Dottie personally until June of this past summer. Lots of mean words were spread from both sides of this campaign. Lots of mean words. I've never, ever heard one from Dottie Mathers, ever. Dottie has served her community for over 30 years. She is an educator, which no one else on the board is. So she's got 30 years of education experience, as well as a doctorate degree in nursing. STEM is the core of education today: science, technology, education, and I forget the fourth one, math. Dottie's a nurse, which again goes to show how much she likes to serve her community because she's picked a job that serves others. She is very knowledgeable about STEM and technology. She is fair, she's considerate, she's polite. She's never argued with any of you when she's had issues with things that the board might have said or done. And she's a good person. She cares about her kids, every single one of them. She cares about safety for all kids. And I think she's a perfect candidate as a school board member. Thank you.
Jan, I thought you was an educator.
I'm a half.
I thought you was a half.
I'm a half.
I thought. I would also like to say that these two people that just got up and spoke are pretty free with the way they speak on the Visions page on Facebook.
I'm not running for board member.
Nor am I.
Does that make it right?
Yes, it makes it
Okay.
acceptable.
I'm glad to think that you think that you're above everybody else.
In your interpretation, yes.
This time I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Snell, before we do that, for clarification for the board,
Sure.
for the public, should we plan on filling that board seat at the April 12th meeting?
I think we should.
Okay. All right. And we should also be prepared to choose the agency that will conduct the superintendent search. We will also do that at the April 12th meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Second, do you have a motion, John?
I motion,
Second. I'm sorry.
No, that's.
I'm second.
yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion